Good morning. Hope you're all having an amazing day wherever you are. Today, I'm going to talk to you guys about a topic. Of course, you can tell what topic is in the title, but this topic is something that I used to discuss back in the day. I'm still frugal, but people would ask me, why are you so cheap? And I have to explain that frugality and being cheap are two different things. And I think a lot of people kind of don't understand the difference. So today, I'm going to talk to you guys about a little bit about the difference and how I used frugality to help me to retire early and become financially independent. I think the best way I can explain frugality and being frugal was through the example of I used during my episode with the minimalism. When you talk about frugality, it talks about spending money on something that you have intentional purpose, and you spend the money. It doesn't matter how much it costs. You spend it, and it'll last you a long time. That product. I'll give you one example. My knife. I bought the knife at IKEA, and I didn't realize how much I spent, but I spent like $30 on one knife. And people would be like, "Wow, that's crazy. Why would you spend that much money on a knife? You can get a knife for $5." And then if you bought that knife for $5 because it was $5, that's what it means to be cheap. I bought the knife because it was intentional purpose of why I'm purchasing that knife. And I don't want to buy something that's cheap that's gonna break down after having it for a couple months. Being frugal is that you don't spend a lot of money on a lot of things. You don't have so much stuff. You don't buy so many, whole entire knife set or whole entire, kitchen set, all this stuff. That is the difference between being frugal and being cheap. Is I'm being intentional with my purchase, but at the same time, I'm not purchasing a lot of stuff. Whereas being cheap is you're gonna purchase something, but it's gonna be lower price. And that's why you're purchasing it. So I hope that kind of gives you an explanation of what frugal means to me. And I think also the concept of frugality and being frugal is when you have to put in the context of what money is. And money is time, right? I said this before. Money is time and time is money. And if you can put the same context of money and time together, and you're going out to buy a whole bunch of stuff, how much of that stuff that you purchased is worth your time? Understanding that the dollar or money has a value in time helps you to also understand when you go out shopping the next time. And you're not just shopping, random shopping, and you can almost see it like, okay, this costs this much. All right, I'm gonna have to work this much to get that. That is kind of a good way to tell, am I willing to work this much at my job for that item? And then especially if you don't like your job too much, you're really suffering for that one item. So that, to me, would also kind of explain to you guys why I am frugal. I look at items that I purchase and I see, is that value long enough for me to work for that money and to give up my time for that one item that I'm purchasing. It doesn't matter what it is, but are you willing to give up your time, whether it be an hour, 2 hours? Are you willing to do your job and suffer at a job that you may not like for 5 hours to purchase that one item? I know that's what you got to ask yourself. Another thing about frugality, and that I mentioned earlier, is about the intentionality, is when we spend money, my wife and I, and we've been frugal throughout our marriage, it was a good example of frugality is also when we talk about when we used to travel. And I think I might have mentioned this in a prior episode, but we used to travel at least twice a year for international holiday vacation. And that was our thing. Because we valued working hard to save up money so that we can then go travel and experience life. Experience the world. That was our intentionality in terms of how we spend our money. And yet people will possibly, friends and people come to our home and hardly see like much of anything in our home. And they're like, wow, Griff is really cheap. He doesn't buy anything for his house. His house is empty. And I explain to people that, we don't put value in possessions, stuff that we own. We put value in time that we spend with one another on holiday. So we go out and, go on these vacations all the time. And then for a while, I used to post our photos on Facebook to show family, our holiday, because they want to see us, enjoying life and want to see our faces. So I used to put on Facebook. But then I get questions of, how can you afford that? Right? Let's say, how can you afford, going on these vacations? Because they think that we are not, we're poor because we don't have anything on home. And so they're like, how can you afford that? And I have to explain to them, we do these vacations as the items in our home. We use it so that the money that we spend towards the vacations, it could be that, I guess, lamp, it could be that additional, TV that you have in your bedroom. So that is how we, spend our money. And being frugal, that's another example of it. And it was really funny. This kind of reminds me of a conversation I had. I did like a podcast with another YouTuber like a year or two ago, and he brought me onto his channel. And because I was talking to him about financial independence and retiring early, and he wanted to hear my story. And so I kind of explained to him what I'm telling you guys right now about how we used to live our lives. And I mentioned the same thing about the vacation thing we used to do. And there was a comment from one of the viewers stating that, oh, they must have had really boring life because they don't spend any money. And I don't want to live that way. I want to enjoy my life. And I want to be able to spend my money. And I was like, okay, that's perfectly, you can do what you want to do with your money. That was never the intention of the interview. But the intention of the interview was to explain how we were able to retire early. And also, we were able to enjoy our lives. Now, I could go through the whole entire library of photos I have from all of our travels and show you guys, but that'd take too long. It's too much, because when I say we travel twice a year for many, many years, give you a couple examples of where we traveled so you can understand that our holidays and vacations were not being cheap, where we just go to a local water park. We went to the Bahamas, staying at the Atlantis. We've been to Aruba, and we also went to stay at the Hilton, and we went to the private island with the flamingos, which was really nice. We've been to Spain. We've been to Belize. We went to an island called Keycocker and went snorkeling and had a wonderful time there. Let me talk to you guys about Peru. Saw Machu Picchu. Also, we saw this mountain. It's called the Rainbow Mountain. And we hiked up over 17,000 feet at the mountain to see Rainbow Mountain. Beautiful view. Also, we've been to the Galapagos Islands, Ecuador. We spent 14 days in the Galapagos Islands. We have traveled and lived life and enjoyed life and still retired early. And how do we do that? Partly is because of frugality. Well, one of the things that I think many of us don't think about, especially when it comes to people talking about how do I save, and they really ask, how can I make extra money to retire early? Or how can I make extra money to become wealthy? And this is one thing that I always stress, that anybody that asks me questions like that, I always say this: how hard is it to make $1? And it's hard. You know, you have to work hard to make $1. I remember this is when, way back when we used to work hard, and it was $5 was a minimum wage for an hour, guys. $5 an hour. Imagine how hard it is to work for $5 in 1 hour, especially manual labor. And so now, of course, it's different, but the still minimum wage is what, around $7, $8 an hour? And you have to really work hard for $7, $8 an hour. But I'll tell you what, you're having an easy time spending $7, $8. Easy. You go out every day, I bet you spend $7, $8 easy. So how easy would it be to reduce the cost of $7, $8? Working at 1 hour a day or reducing the cost of $7? How easy would it be? Which one would be easier? I guarantee it that reducing the cost would be easier. Reduce that $7 within, one Starbucks trip. So when I think of money and I think about how to save money and how to make more money and how to become financially independent, I don't look at the aspect of how to make more money and, getting a side hustle and doing all this other stuff. I look at, is there a way for me to save money? And I don't have to spend money. So then I can have more money to use towards investments in helping me to become financially independent. I think that is one of the key factors, my personality, or my personal opinion, key factors of why frugality is so important for me. Now, it's not for everybody, of course. I'm not saying it's for everybody. I'm not telling you all to become frugal people. But think of it in terms of money and time and how easy it is for you to save money versus that of to make money. So if you can understand that if you can minimize your expenses, that makes it a big difference in widening the gap of how much money you have extra left over that you can then invest. Because my biggest thing when it comes to early retirement is the more money you have to invest, the quicker you can retire early. And I know it's a lot harder for you to get another job, second job, third job, side hustle, than is to then reduce the cost of your life and minimize the things that you purchase. And purchase with intentionality, be frugal, not saying don't deprive yourself of things you need, but be more intentional with what you purchase. And that way, you can save money and then you can invest that money. So I hope that makes sense. I want to really kind of explain to you guys that the aspects of minimalism, aspects of frugality, that has a lot to do with, not spending a lot of money on frivolous things. Don't believe in the world telling you have to have all these things. But still enjoy life and enjoy, spending your time and really appreciate what you have and purchase and get things with intentionality. So that is what I wanted to say today. I hope that makes a lot of sense. And if it doesn't, leave a comment below and let me know what I didn't make sense on. I'd love to hear it. I'll tell you what, I've said this before and I'll keep on saying it. I love your guys' comments. I love and appreciate your support on this channel. I want to keep on making these videos for you so that you can kind of understand where I'm coming from and how we were able to retire early and also move abroad. So until next time, guys, have yourself a wonderful day. Also, stay positive and we'll see you back next episode. Bye-bye.